It is time to get your lineup set for week 4 of fantasy football. Today we are discussing 18 different starts or sits and how they will change your outcome in your week 4 matchup. Cameron, you're starting us off today with a name that I looked at the doc and immediately thought disgusting. And then I went and looked at the stats on the season, and Jaylen Warren is currently the running back 17 for those who don't actually realize it.
Yeah, he's one of those players that we just don't want to admit it, but as of right now, he's the guy in Pittsburgh. 80% of snaps in week 3, 18 carries, 6 targets. I know it's disgusting. I mean, it's 3.1 yards per carry right now. It's not exactly pretty. He's in that Steelers uniform with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator, so you're like, oh, he's not going to put up points. But he has, like you said, running back 17.5 PPR. If we know anything about Minnesota from last week and the week before, is that they've been really, really good against the pass. They've still been pretty decent against the run, but if there's any way that the Steelers team is going to try to beat them, they have to get the ball or run game going at least a little bit. And the Steelers showed Arthur Smith showed last week that they're going to do that through Jaylen Warren, and pretty exclusively through Jaylen Warren. So yeah, it's not necessarily pretty, but the volume's there, and I'm going to chase the volume with Jaylen Warren in this one.
I feel like I have let the Jaylen Warren movement down because just last offseason, I was at the forefront of the Jaylen Warren movement saying, yes, he is the chosen one. He will overcome Najee Harris. And then they drafted Caleb Johnson, and now I got extremely skittish because I'm like, I do kind of like Caleb Johnson, the prospect, excuse me. Ty, Caleb Johnson really isn't even in the picture anymore. Yet I'm still hesitant on Jaylen Warren. Are you still a little bit skittish?
No, not really. Right now, he's the running back 12 in usage. So what we were predicting at the beginning of the year, that if Jaylen Warren couldn't overtake Najee Harris, there's no way that he's going to overtake Caleb Johnson. And Arthur Smith has said, hold my beer, and I'm going to make Jaylen Warren a stud. And so far he has been. So it feels weird going up against the Vikings defense going like, yeah, I would start him. But like Cam said, like the volume is there right now. And if there's anything that this offense can bank on that they can go through right now, it is Jaylen Warren.
It does feel like Jaylen Warren is going to be the definition of a volume play here. And I'll maybe just say I was never wrong on Jaylen Warren. I was just about a year and 4 months too early on Jaylen Warren. So I do think, look, if he's going to get the touches, it's not a fabulous matchup, but like this is just very DeAndre Swift-esque to me, right? Where you're not going to be excited to play him. Tony Pollard-esque, even you're not excited to play him, but if he's going to get the volume in this offense, you just throw him in your flex spot because he might just somehow rumble his way to 12.5, 13 points, which is what he's averaging on the season currently. Before we dive on into the rest of our starts and sits, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell as well if you aren't already. We're so grateful for those of you who have already joined the 5,300 followers that we've accumulated over the last year and a half or so of this channel. Our goal is truly to provide you the insights that we're gathering to beat our friends in fantasy football, to beat each other in fantasy football. But really, we want to remind you of the fun and camaraderie that comes with the game of fake football that we all love playing together, right? We want to take it seriously, but come on, at the end of the day, we're all about having fun in the process as well. Ty, you are going to talk about someone on Thursday Night Football, Trey Benson. Now, I do want to make it clear, we are recording this episode on Wednesday, September 24th. You will get this episode first thing Thursday morning. If you're tuning in on Friday, which I know many of you have in previous weeks when we posted this video, you can go ahead and just fast forward to the next chapter in the video. But Ty, for those who are listening on Thursday, before Thursday Night Football, plead the case for Trey Benson.
Well, if he was available in your leagues, you likely drained your fab on Trey Benson. So I would say it's time to put your money where your mouth is and start him this week against Seattle. And I know that you hear Seattle and go, oh, that's not really a great matchup. No, not really. But let's not pretend that Seattle has exactly shut down running back so far, and they shut down the Saints running backs last week because they got ahead to a 21-0 lead after the first quarter. So it was virtually like pass or die if you were the Saints. So with that being said, Seattle is allowing the 10th most fantasy points per game to the running back position right now. And they have allowed, I should say, the second most receptions. And if we know anything about Trey Benson so far this year, it is that he has been in more receiving work and in that third down role. And now that James Conner's out of the picture, we're adding some rushing volume on top of that. So again, the matchup against Seattle doesn't sound great on paper, but I feel like this is a Trey Benson matchup that he can really excel in because of the receiving work.
Yeah, and I don't want to get people's hopes up falsely either. Like Trey Benson is not going to be this 90% workhorse, right? That's not what you're pleading at all. I do think Amari DeMarcado probably gets in and takes a few receiving downs as well, accumulates a reception or two that probably could be funneled Trey Benson's way, Cameron. But I don't know. To me, I just look at Trey Benson. I'm like, again, probably similar-ish to Jalen Warren. It's not a matchup I love, but my guess is that he's going to get the volume. If he does catch 2 or 3 passes in this game and stumbles his way into the end zone, you're going to be looking at him as a top 15 finish on the week.
Yeah, I think he's for sure top 20 back moving forward, probably borderline top 15 in this offense with the role he's going to get. I've been super high on Trey Benson since he came out of college. Go Knowles. But so I'm all in with you here, Ty. Like I'm fully invested
bandwagon.
Hey, I'll take it. But I'm all for the Trey Benson love. So yeah, I'd for sure be firing him up this week.
We'll keep it moving. I think we're all in agreement there. Trey Benson, if you burn the fab on him, like you said, Ty, we'll put a bow on it where you started. Put your money where your mouth is. You're firing up Trey Benson this week. J.K. Dobbins, whether you realize it or not, is currently the RB10 this year and half PPR formats. He has had a clear stranglehold of this backfield over RJ Harvey. Ideally, we do want more than 4 receptions on the season. But if he's going to keep hitting pay dirt at this rate, I mean, he's basically David Montgomery, but in mile high, right? Like that's what we're looking at here with J.K. Dobbins. Since he has allowed the second most fantasy points to running backs this year, and 4 backs have topped at least 15 full PPR fantasy points against them this year. This is a no-brainer. You fire up J.K. Dobbins. This Bengals defense is piss poor. It's not going to be hard to put up points against them. Even if we get a smidge of what we saw from Jordan Mason last week. If we only get 1 touchdown instead of 2 from J.K. Dobbins this week, we're in complete business. So J.K. Dobbins to me is like a very, very strong flex option this week. And debatably, you could probably even slot him in as your running back too.
Yeah, I would agree. I think what we saw, obviously the defensive touchdowns, the way that game worked, right, for Minnesota is a little bit of a different story, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you can run all over this Bengals defense, just like Jordan Mason did. Denver's offensive line has looked awesome. J.K. Dobbins is averaging 5.4 yards per carry. I don't expect that to dip this week. Or J.K. Dobbins is averaging 5.4 yards per carry, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that to dip this week. And like you said, this is a good matchup to find the end zone. So he's going to see volume because they're probably going to be up. He's going to be efficient, and he's probably going to find the end zone. You really have no reason not to put him in your lineup.
It's just like the perfect recipe for success, Ty. When you look at the game script that should be in place, the efficiency that J.K. Dobbins has already been running with, the stranglehold he has on this backfield. I mean, is there anything else you can even add at this point?
No, I don't want to say that he's like game script proof, but we've seen Denver run the ball still in closer games and when they have been ahead as well. So I doubt that anyone is kind of predicting that Cincinnati is going to be ahead in this one. So we are kind of the work for J.K. Dobbins is, I would say, set in stone for this week, that you can bank on another 15 touches at minimum, because again, like you said, it is his backfield right now.
Yeah, Ty, I think that's an important part you bring up there is the neutral pass rate of this Denver Broncos team, right? They are literally throwing 50%, 50-50 between run and pass and neutral game script this year. So this is not a team that is putting the ball into Bo Nix's hands. They're not necessarily forcing it into J.K. Dobbins' gut either, but again, you have to imagine against the Cincinnati Bengals team, Jake Browning potentially struggling against this Denver defense. You could see that rise a bit more this week, and then just feeding J.K. Dobbins the football. Let's move on to running back sits now, fellas. We'll stay in position. Players you're not looking to put in your lineup this week. Cameron, I fear it is Travion Henderson breakout week. I'm too afraid to say it. So instead, what we're going to talk about is why you should just not play Ramondre Stevenson instead of just assuming Travion Henderson is going to go bonkers.
That's exactly it, right? I just don't have the cojones right now to say start Travion Henderson. I don't want you to be upset with me.
He was almost my start of the week.
Exactly.
And then I saw J.K. Dobbins, and I'm like,
Yep.
duh.
We'll go a little safer. We don't want to, right? If you want to put him in your lineup, this is maybe you use this as your excuse, but Ramondre fumbled twice last week. And the thing about Ramondre is he has the highest fumble rate out of any running back who I think has played over 50 games in his career. Oof. Right now, he's fumbled, I think, 16 times in like 80 games or something just ridiculous like that. And you can't keep doing that. He fumbled once on the goal line, and then right when they started the second half last week. And then right after that second fumble, he played 5 of the final 35 snaps. I understand Carolina's a good matchup, but just going into this week, you have no idea if he's even going to see the field. And I don't want that in my flex spot. I don't want that as my RB2. I'm just not going to deal with that because his only good week this year was against Miami. And it was really inflated by a 50-yard reception. And I'm not banking on a 50-yard reception each week from Ramondre Stevenson, especially if Travion's going to be more involved, especially if they're mixing in Antonio Gibson. So I just don't want to deal with it because I feel like the downside outweighs the upside by so much this week.
Yeah, even in like deeper leagues, like I think in most like standard 10, 12 man leagues, you weren't really considering Ramondre Stevenson for your RB2 spot. But even in like deep 12 man, 14 man leagues, Ty, it's just like I don't really want to play this game with Ramondre Stevenson because again, against the Carolina Panthers, what if this is the game where the Patriots are like, you know what, F it, we're going to give Travion Henderson 16 touches this week. And he just goes ahead and racks up like 90 total yards. He gives you a typical Jahmyr Gibbs game.
Yeah, sorry, I almost cut you off there. When you were going, Ramondre was averaging 65% of snaps before last week. So you guys have the concern that like Ramondre may not get on the field. I have concerns that this backfield is still going to be a nasty rotation. That like I would not have even gone as far to say Travion is a start because I'm like, it wouldn't surprise me if we get Ramondre at 45 and then Travion at 35 and then Gibson gets the rest. Like, we have no idea how this backfield is going to work out, and I'm okay letting it play out this week and then adjusting moving forward.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, because you could say, well, Travion Henderson appears to be first in line for the workload duties here. It could be his big boom game. Why don't we fire him up, and if we win, we hit the jackpot. But really the best way to play this is saying, yeah, Travion Henderson's probably first in line. It doesn't mean he's dominating first in line, but what we do know is that it's not Ramondre Stevenson. So we're going to fade back on Ramondre Stevenson and just avoid playing him because the mystery box does not have a wide range of outcomes this week. It feels like the mystery box at best is like 5 fantasy points, 6 fantasy points. If Ramondre Stevenson stumbles into the end zone in some capacity this week, that's really the only upside it feels like you're going to get from him. Let's move on to a guy who, look, Ty, Quinshon Judkins in his second game of his NFL career looked really good last week against a very good Green Bay Packers defense. I find it hard to sit him in a matchup against Detroit, but I think you can probably make the case as to why. I'll leave that up to you, mostly because I'm like, after what I saw against Green Bay, I don't know, man. Quinshon Judkins has got some juice, man.
He's got some juice, but the worrying concern here is game scripts. It wouldn't surprise anybody if Detroit gets ahead early in this game, very similar to how like Seattle got ahead in New Orleans. And Quinshon Judkins' role that we've seen the past couple of weeks of where he's the early down, the goal line guy, the short yardage guy, takes a hit. Now, that's not to say that Judkins won't get on the field then. I still feel like he'll then rotate in with Jerome Ford on those kind of passing situations and maybe even third downs then. But again, it's game script that could work against Quinshon Judkins. And I just don't think we get any touchdowns that could really salvage his week then, because that's ultimately what you're going to need. Sure, he can give you 3 catches for 25, 30 yards, but the rushing volume and production behind it isn't really going to help him out at all.
Yeah, I do wonder if the Browns are going to have a little bit of a hangover and maybe a little bit is an understatement. I wonder if the Browns are going to have a decent hangover this week, Cameron, after beating a very good Green Bay Packers team, a team that everybody was hyping up, and Cleveland came in and shocked the world. I wonder if the Lions come in this week and just absolutely beat up on a team that's probably feeling high and mighty about themselves. But I think we all know at the end of the day, the Detroit Lions are just flat out the better team.
Yeah. Last week, we kind of said the same thing about Judkins of, hey, game script. This week, they're going into Detroit, where Detroit notoriously plays better after the Lions have looked awesome the last 2 weeks on offense. So I'm not expecting, they're going to do it 2 weeks in a row, like you said. I think that it was fun for 1 week, but now that you're going into Detroit playing at Ford Field, I think it's a very different story.
Let's move on from one rookie running back to another, fellas. How about sitting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt? I know the fantasy footballers already do it. Okay, don't come screaming, these guys are just trying to be like the fantasy footballer. I want to say it every time I talk about Bill Krosky-Merritt. It is the easiest layup in the entire world. So just let us have it, all right? Just let us have it, because we know you're thinking it too. But here's the thing about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I just really don't want to ride this Commanders carousel of a backfield here, right? Sure, Bill's playing the most snaps of all the Commanders running backs right now, but 8 carries for only 26 yards and a touchdown is just not inspiring when you're competing with Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez Jr. Okay. Atlanta's not a great matchup either. 6th fewest fantasy points allowed to running backs this year. I'm just looking at other options because the box score isn't telling me Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is playing like an RB1 for the Washington Commanders. I think you're just going to have better, higher upside options here in what could actually be a little bit tough sledding for Bill.
Yeah, I honestly think he's probably a sit most weeks moving forward, just because even in his best week, we've seen 40% of snaps. I just don't want to guess. And that's really what it comes down to. I just feel like there's better options. He truly is touchdown dependent right now. Obviously, it's worked out 2 of the 3 weeks. But even then, it's not like you're getting some crazy ceiling from him. So I'm definitely okay passing with the limited receiving upside and just limited work in general.
Where are you at, Ty?
I would agree. There's nothing that says that like Bill. Yes, he's gotten the most snaps, but he's not the guy. The team isn't willing to make him the guy because we would see the volume and we just haven't seen it yet.
I'm literally the one who does the graphics for this every single week. And I literally saw 1 reception on here and I did a double take and I panicked. I'm like, there's no way I didn't update this from like a week 2 box score, right? But no, it is true. Bill Krosky-Merritt only has 1 reception on the year, so you're not even getting any PPR upside in your PPR leagues as well. So, yeah, I just look. I know he's RB26 on the season. I think he's bailed you out with 2 touchdowns so far, but I really do think you probably got better options out there that are probably more likely to score a touchdown than Bill this week. He's just not playing like an RB1, man. And I don't know how you're Washington looking at this and thinking, can we potentially get more explosives out on the football field? I don't know how you do that with Jeremy McNichols or Chris Rodriguez. Don't get me wrong on that. So maybe you are kind of stuck with this Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt conundrum, but I don't think it's one you have to be stuck trying to decide in your fantasy lineups. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog, where you can get into the game this season playing Pick'em. It's extremely simple. Just pick higher or lower on 2 or more of your favorite players. For example, I'll pick the highers on Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Xavier Worthy. If I played $10 and got all 3 of them right, I would win $60 just by watching football. And that's the beauty of Pick'em. You can track your picks and your wins while you enjoy the game. Now, if you're not on Underdog yet, scan the QR code on your screen or use our code FELLAS when you sign up, because new customers will get $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5 on the app. Plus, Underdog will give you a free pick to use in your first entry. Again, that's code FELLAS over on Underdog. Now let's get you back to the rest of the show. Let's move on to the wide receivers now, fellas. We'll start with the players to start. And Cameron, oh boy, you are putting on your big boy pants right away, because after I said to start Matthew Golden in week 1, I have just become a complete chicken on him. Yet, despite only having 8 targets, 6 receptions for 68 yards this year, wheels up for you on Matthew Golden this week.
Yeah, I think we saw the increase in usage that I'm feel more comfortable starting him. He was second in snaps, tied for the most wide receiver targets last week. We've seen route share go from 44% week 1, 66 in week 2 to 71% last week. Obviously still no Jaden Reed, but for me, the biggest thing overall is just that the Dallas Cowboys suck. Jay Gruden.
Flat out.
I mean, their defense is awful. Jay Gruden put out a tweet. And I'm not the biggest Jay Gruden guy, but he did make me laugh. He said the Cowboys have changed the meaning of cover zero. It used to mean that it's an all-out blitz, but now it just means you don't cover anybody, and that's what they're running play after play. Matthew Golden is their down the field guy. That's where the Cowboys have stunk so far this year. So yeah, I'm feeling confident enough that they're going to look to get him the ball in this one, and the matchup is good enough that I am confident that with the increase in targets and snap share, we're going to finally see it come through for Matthew Golden.
Now, I don't want to say one player makes the difference in this matchup for me, because I think before the report we got today on Wednesday about Deron Bland, it sounds like there's a glimmer of hope he does actually play in week 4 against the Packers. If he'd be out again, I'd be like, if this is the game to fire up Matthew Golden, it feels like this is the one you got to take advantage of it in because of this matchup with Dallas. But does potential news of Deron Bland potentially suiting up this week, Ty, does that like make a difference for you, or do you still just have zero interest in Matthew Golden whatsoever?
Maybe makes a little bit of a difference. I noted the uptick for Matthew Golden last week, but I also wonder how much of that is because this was such a close game with Cleveland, and that this game could also be very similar to a Detroit-Cleveland where Green Bay gets ahead and there's just not a whole lot of opportunities to throw the ball, or nor do they want to throw the ball a ton. But again, like you guys have said, like if there's a matchup that like you want to take the risk and try to like predict the emergence, this would probably be the game because of the defense. I think I ultimately just say I would rather see it first than rather try to get ahead of it, because I still don't know if I have a good grip on how this wide receiver room and passing game is really going to play out.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Ty, where I get if people want to fire up Matthew Golden in their flex spot this week to take a shot on a big swing. We're also early enough in the season where I'm like, if I'm a Matthew Golden manager, I'm willing to just keep him stashed until we do see that one big splash game, until we do get confirmation that his snap rate is going to stay where it was from last week as well. So I don't necessarily outright disagree with you, Cameron. I think you're just more willing to pull the trigger on putting Matthew Golden in your lineup than admittedly I am this week. I think this is a great matchup. I think Packers wide receivers could absolutely find success in this game, but will it be through Matthew Golden? That again, I'm kind of with Ty though. I'd rather see it before I fully believe it. Ty, you're going to talk about another rookie wide receiver here. A few bumps in the road for Teteroa McMillan, but still the start for you this week.
Yeah, a lot of people, including myself, were ready for a huge Teteroa McMillan game last week against Atlanta because there was no AJ Terrell. And well, let's just say we didn't get it because the game went completely different than what we were expecting it to be. We did not expect Carolina to not only shut
week
out
17 from last year.
Exactly. We did not expect them to shut out Atlanta, but we also then did not expect them to win by such a wide margin, by 30 points. We have another matchup this week against New England that really suits Teteroa. It's against New England, who play man at the 6th highest rate, and T-Mac has seen a 50% target rate against man so far this year, so he is the go-to guy in this offense against man coverage. On top of that, New England is bottom 5 in coverage and allowing the 5th most yards per reception while in man coverage. That's according to PFF. So I think the matchup is there. I'm not expecting another 30-0 blowout game. I will say this, though, since, again, we are recording this on Wednesday, September 24th. Tet did miss practice on Wednesday with a calf injury. So if we get a no practice on Thursday and we just get a limited practice on Friday, I'm a little less confident then, but I've got faith that he'll be limited, full, like ready to go. He has said already he expects to play. So again, I've got a ton of faith in T-Mac being a breakout this week.
I want to correct myself. It was week 18. Panthers and Falcons played last year, not week 17. Forgive me, please. The other thing that, Cam, I want to know if this factors into this matchup for you at all. It sounds like the Patriots are going to ramp up Christian Gonzalez to make his season debut in week 4. Does that make a difference for you in this matchup?
No, if the Panthers want to put up points and their defense doesn't do it like they did last week, they have to go through Tet. That's the way they're going to have to do it. It's him and Chuba, and essentially that's all they have. JT Sanders now out for a couple of weeks, so their already depleted team is even more depleted. Jalen Coker's not back yet. Xavier Legette's been banged up, so he's really their only option, and he is also the best option by quite a bit. So I'm going to just bank on the volume. Maybe the efficiency isn't quite what we wanted, but the fact that he's seen 9, 10, 8 targets his first 3 games, I really don't have any doubts about putting him in your starting lineup.
That's kind of you to say Xavier Legette has been banged up instead of Xavier Legette has just been bad to start the season. He has been unreliable for this offense to start the season. Thank you for being gracious and saying banged up instead of he has just been flat out unreliable for Bryce Young. I'll move it on to my wide receiver start of the week here. How about some slicky Ricky Pearsall? As of this recording on Wednesday, Juwan Jennings hasn't practiced yet this week. He was a DNP on Wednesday. Definitely keep track of that as the week unfolds. But if Ricky is going to be the only healthy wide receiver for the 49ers this week, I mean, it's completely wheels up against the Jaguars, right? They're giving up the second most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers this year. Rick has scored 14 plus in 2 of his first 3 games this year in PPR formats. It's a pretty easy matchup to just say, hey, look, take advantage of the Jaguars, make it 3 of 4 to start the season.
Yeah, I think especially if you got Ricky, you should be starting him in these games where George Kittle's out, where, like you said, Juwan Jennings is banged up, because by default, I mean, obviously Christian McCaffrey's gotten every reception he possibly could with Mac Jones, but just if they're going to throw to a wide receiver or a pass catcher, Ricky's their guy. So yeah, I'm all for it, just because he really does have baked in guaranteed volume, which you love to see if you're talking about a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 flex kind of player.
Where's Rick at in your rankings this week, Ty? Okay, you can find our weekly consensus over in our Discord, which is down in the description of the video or audio podcast you were listening to. But this is one for me where I think I originally ranked them with Juwan Jennings playing, but if Juwan Jennings isn't going to play, like, how high do we actually push Rick up this week?
Currently, because I did the same thing as you, I assumed that Juwan Jennings is going to be fine, and I am not so confident in that. So he was my wide receiver 20, and he might get a little closer to being a wide receiver 1 for me this week, being top 12. He'll probably fit somewhere. He'll probably land somewhere between 14 and 18, somewhere in there, but it's wheels up then again for Ricky Pearsall, and I'll enjoy every second of that this week.
Want to have some fun? Want to make
why not? Let's go. Let's keep it going.
Let's have some fun. Well, I'm not doing a Canes bet if that's what you thought I was going.
Oh, what?
Not doing a Canes
I'm on
bet.
a hot streak, man.
No. Not on a start of the week. You and I are in agreement here. Why would I do a Canes bet with you over an agreement?
Well, who's more bullish on Ricky Pearsall, you or me? That's
no, sure. Okay. No, I wide receiver 1 overall this week. No.
You won't.
Okay, here we go. Start sit decision. Brian Thomas Jr. or Ricky Pearsall, same game.
Oh, it's Ricky for me. Pretty easy.
That face from Cameron.
Wow. I know Mr. Pro BTJ over there can't handle that.
I'm still
Ricky
Brian
Pearsall.
Thomas.
Even if Juwan Jennings is out.
I'm still Brian Thomas.
Oh, you.
Canes bet. There you go.
All right.
Wanted it. Brian Thomas
for both Lucas and I. Right. Lucas and I. What?
Hey, if you want to include me in this.
Sure, I'll do it. For both of you.
All right.
Brian Thomas versus Ricky this week.
Who scores more?
Yeah, who scores more in half PPR?
Half PPR. Okay. Ricky.
I'll take Ty. I'll go with Ricky.
All right. Brian Thomas.
Cam might just be stacking up Canes bets here. He might just have 4 meals at the end of the
Brian Thomas is about to go like 12 for 13 for 250 and 3 this week because you said that.
Ricky will go for 300 then.
Yeah, all right. Ricky can't even count to 300.
Yikes. Golly, let's move on to sits before we derail the Ricky Pearsall debate any further. Cam, I'll come right back to you here. Cedric Tillman, been plenty involved in the Browns offense, but no interest in the Lions, where we've already said they'll probably be chasing points.
Yeah, he was tied for 5th on the team in targets with Jamari Thrash, behind, dare I say, behind Isaiah Bond last game after I was told he wouldn't be a factor. In fact, Isaiah Bond played 43 snaps to Tillman's 49. He is a factor, or maybe Tillman isn't a factor. Maybe that's the way to put it. But he's nonetheless, he's fighting for targets with Harold Fannin, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy. And then the fact that Jamari Thrash and Isaiah Bond aren't involved at all, that just makes me nervous. That makes me really not want to try to figure it out. And then you add the fact that Detroit's coming off a game against Lamar Jackson where they had 30 pressures and 7 sacks. I'm sorry, but I really don't think Joe Flacco is going to be out there being an efficient passer scoring points. I think they're at 15 points they've averaged so far this year. Yeah, that just doesn't interest me. I really want nothing to do with that.
Any interest in Utah for Cedric Tillman this week? Again, you made the case for Quinshon Judkins why he's not a start this week is because you're worried about the game script, but the game script should dictate Cedric Tillman should be involved in the passing attack.
Yeah, can I just say I'm glad that we got the Canes bet in on Ricky Pearsall versus Brian Thomas Jr. and not Cedric Tillman because I think
Cedric Tillman or Isaiah Bond.
Right. That one would not have been an enjoyable experience because I ultimately do have some interest in Cedric Tillman this week because again, like you said, I just think the game script is there. Yes, Isaiah Bond, Jamari Thrash were getting targets last week in a 13-10 game against Green Bay. I don't think this game is close between the Browns and the Lions. And so what if there's more pressure? I'm just thinking that Joe Flacco could literally walk away with like 45 passing attempts in this game because that's all that Cleveland will be, all that Cleveland will be able to do. That being said, I'm not forcing Cedric Tillman into my lineup. This is definitely like a deeper league type of flex play. This is not a you're right in your 8-man leagues. I'm not telling you to go start Cedric Tillman. That's kind of a one-way ticket to losing your week.
Yeah, I mean, I think in your typical 10, 12-man leagues, Cedric Tillman's a fine set this week. But 14, 16-man leagues, you might be in a spot where you're like, I don't know, man, a lot of points. Just chase the points in this game that the Browns will also be chasing. So I don't outright disagree because I think, again, standard 10, 12-man leagues, you probably have better options. But in deeper leagues, I don't think Cedric Tillman is actually the worst option that you could go with this week. Ty, I'll come over to you. Again, this is much more for 10, 12-man leagues, this selection. Deeper leagues, you're probably going to have to fire up DJ Moore. But, again, shallow leagues, I don't mind if people pivot to a different option other than DJ Moore this week.
Yeah, we talked about him in our trade targets episode last week, or yesterday, I should say, as a sell. You should check that out, by the way, because the usage right now is just not there. He's the wide receiver 44 in usage. I just don't expect that to change enough to warrant a start against this week against Vegas. Again, the matchup against Vegas is nice on paper, but the usage just doesn't line up. Could DJ Moore make me look a fool this week? Absolutely, because he could reel in a 60-yard touchdown and go, yeah, DJ Moore actually finishes as a top 30 receiver this week. And then I'm going to go, well, now I look like an idiot. But nothing so far has said that DJ Moore is going to have a breakout game, is going to finally emerge and kind of slow the roll that Roma Dunze is on right now. I think you are A-okay passing up on DJ Moore this week.
Cam, you were optimistic for DJ Moore coming into the season. Do you have any concerns after the first 3 weeks with what you've been seeing for his role moving forward? What value he provides to fantasy teams?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am a little concerned. The days of him being the alpha in this offense are gone. I think that's been pretty clear of it. Rome is the alpha now. I'm not there yet where Ty is, where I'm sitting him. I'm starting him in most leagues I have him in. I think that, like you said, the matchup is good enough that I'm going to trust in this offense to get him involved. I know the volume hasn't been great, but I'm not at a point yet where I'm ready to be sitting DJ Moore.
So he's currently on your bench on your favorite dynasty team.
No!
You want to read off the players on that dynasty team and then we can compare it to a normal redraft league?
Breece Hall.
Yeah, Breece Hall's a top 15 running back for me this week. He's playing Miami.
Yeah, after what we've seen the past 2 weeks. You
Yes.
sure about that? You
Yes,
sure
he's
about
playing
that?
Miami. He's a top 15 running back.
Devontae
Another
Adams
Canes bet.
Devontae Adams been on fire.
Yes.
dealing with the sore hamstring going against
Yeah,
Philly, the toughest matchup he's had so far.
Devontae Adams had a sore hamstring since he was like 26. He's fine. He's like Julio Jones.
I say this one as a joke, but you really trust Nico Collins in Houston right now over
Yes.
DJ Moore?
And Brian Thomas Jr.
That's
and Tyreek Hill.
which is okay. Again, I my point is I don't have faith. I would start all of those guys, even Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of DJ Moore, and that's not particularly close for me. So if you're a fan of the talent that is DJ Moore, go ahead, but also don't be surprised if he throws up another dud this week, and you're like, "What the heck? Why didn't it work out?" It hasn't worked out. He's just been getting bailed out by the one touchdown.
We'll put a pin in DJ Moore there, and we'll talk about another player of I'll say similar caliber. How about DeKalb Zacharias Metcalf of the Pittsburgh Steelers? We're bringing out the full government name here. Not only is DK Metcalf touchdown dependent right now, but he draws an uber tough matchup here with the Vikings in Ireland, right? We're traveling abroad for this game. They have allowed the fewest fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers this year. I am not expecting an international touchdown from DK Metcalf this week. And frankly, we're just going to need a whole lot better than his box scores over the last 2 weeks where he's had a touchdown to kind of pad the week and save you from yourself, which has been 3 receptions for 20 yards and 3 receptions for 32 yards. We're just going to need better than that for him to be fantasy relevant. And if he can't even do that in like better matchups than the Minnesota Vikings, I don't know, man. Like DK Metcalf could just be the ultimate landmine this week in my mind.
Yeah, Minnesota's played against Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Drake London so far.
It's not like they haven't played anybody, right?
And they're giving up 14 fantasy points a game to wide receivers. They're the only team under 15, and they've played decent players at the position. So yeah, he was my sell for, the reason of it's been propped up by touchdowns. Not expecting him to score this week. I saw a stat. I don't remember where it was from, but he is ranked 92nd out of 92 qualifying wide receivers in separation score right now, with a negative separation score, which is impressive. So
just impressive.
He is not getting open. Arthur Smith doesn't know, gives him no help either, because he doesn't do that for his lead wide receiver. So yeah, I'm no interest in DK Metcalf this week.
None from you either, Ty?
Nope. People can fall for he's the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, and that's what you've been buying in on the last 3 weeks. And Arthur Smith does not care. He would rather give the ball to Jaylen Warren than to DK Metcalf.
Well, before we move on to our quarterback and tight end streams of the week, need to remind you all, we are live every Sunday morning before kickoff. Ty and I will be live this week answering all of your start sit questions leading up to the top of the day. So make sure you join us for that. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell as well, so you know when we go live, so you can join us as soon as games start. Look, the Vikings will be playing against the Steelers at that point. We haven't decided what time we're going live yet because of that, but you can count on us being live before noon kickoff for sure. A time is to be determined on that. Quarterback, tight end streams of the week, fellas. We'll knock them out here to close out the episode. Cameron, you got to the dock quicker than I did and took Jordan Love. He is very clearly the top streaming option for me this week.
Yeah, the reason I have confidence in Matthew Golden is because they are playing the Dallas Cowboys, who are currently giving up 28.1 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. Yeah, you can sign me up for that one. I don't really think there's much more that I need to say there.
No, not at all, because I was sold before you even put his name in the document. Ty, I'll pivot to you. Jared Goff, you mentioned they could just absolutely put a beating on the Cleveland Browns this week.
Yep, Cleveland's defense is first in rushing DVOA by giving up the 3rd most passing touchdowns this year. So I'm not expecting them to completely shut down this Detroit offense, and that Jared Goff is going to be behind all that. And Detroit is the 3rd highest implied team total this week. So points are going to be scored by Detroit still, and I'm expecting it to be from the passing game.
Similar to both of you, I just like the matchup for Geno Smith this week going up against the Chicago Bears. Look, JJ McCarthy in week 1 hung 25 on the Bears. Jared Goff hung 43 on the Bears. Look, Dak Prescott only 13, but you know what? He lost CeeDee Lamb in this game. All right. I'm not going to put that on Dak Prescott. Oh my gosh. Let me start over 3. Gosh, I just can't even talk. 2, 1. Yeah, similar to you both, I just like the match for Geno Smith against the Chicago Bears this week. You look at the quarterbacks that he's already played. J.J. McCarthy hung 25 on the Bears. Jared Goff hung 43 in week 2. Dak Prescott only 13, but he lost CeeDee Lamb in the first quarter of that game. I'm really not counting that in this equation here, because still in the grand scheme of things, the Bears are giving up over 22 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks this year. That is the third most, behind only the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. So Geno Smith, to me, if you can't get Jordan Love, if your league is already on top of Jared Goff as well, a deeper league where Geno Smith probably isn't rostered in a majority of those leagues, he is clearing away probably your best option against the Chicago Bears this week. Tight ends. Let's wrap it up, fellas, because boy, do I need to take a break. I am getting tired and unfocused. Cameron, Zach Ertz, tight end stream of the week. Admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of the matchup against Atlanta, but I'm also not going to deny with where he's at amongst the current ranks of tight ends.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. He's tight end 7 on the season. Atlanta has been pretty decent against tight ends so far, but last week was his first disappointing week, first time out of the top 10. And that really came from he only played 53% of snaps because they were up on Vegas so quickly. And that game was in hand pretty much from the onset, even with Marcus Mariota playing. Sounds like Jaden Daniels is practicing, should be back. Terry McLaurin most likely out. They're going to have to lean on other pass catchers. Zach Ertz is a guy they trust, and he is one of those tight ends that is always a touchdown threat. So I'm all in on, or not all in, but I think that he is, if you are looking for someone to stream to pick up off waivers, he's a guy you could go do and throw right into the lineup.
Could do a lot worse than Zach Ertz in your lineup this week. Ty, maybe the most consistent thing in the Jacksonville Jaguars passing attack is like shockingly Brenton Strange, or maybe consistently inconsistent. You could talk about Brian Thomas Jr., but
I was going to say, if you want consistency, it's Brian Thomas Jr. not catching the ball. That's what it is.
Or Travis Hunter not even seeing the field. That's pretty consistent.
In terms of positivity, Brenton Strange is somehow the only consistent thing within the Jaguars passing attack right now, Ty. So you're good streaming him against the 49ers.
Yep. Top 12 in targets, receptions, and yards at the position right now. Like you said, with this wide receiver room in flux right now in terms of who can actually catch the ball, there's a clear opportunity for Brenton Strange to become Trevor Lawrence's most reliable target. And this is another game I'm expecting Jacksonville to be playing from behind, and that's just more opportunity for Brenton Strange.
I typically don't tell people to just chase points, but Hunter Henry has a role in this Patriots offense, right? We've now seen 8 targets in 2 games this year. Panthers are a fine matchup this week as well, allowing the 8th most points to the position this year. Honestly, it feels like we're going to rotate through like 5 guys maybe throughout the season in terms of who you can count as a streamer week in and week out. But early on in the season, through 3 weeks, you can count on Hunter Henry. I know we were propped up by touchdowns last week, but who's to say he doesn't find the end zone against the Carolina Panthers again this week? Again, you could just be doing so much worse than Hunter Henry. So if you need someone to flex in there into your tight end spot, not in your flex spot, if you need someone to slide into your tight end spot because you're still George Kittle-less, go ahead. Because as of this recording, Hunter Henry is still available in 40% of Yahoo leagues and 60% of ESPN leagues. Maybe that will update on Fantasy Pros website by Thursday morning. I'm guessing it will, but that still surprised me to see Hunter Henry so widely available when I feel like teams are probably more tight end needy than they realize and could use a guy like Hunter Henry. So you can fire him up this week if you are in need. We'll wrap it up there, fellas. Thanks to the people for sticking around. If you have at this point, again, I ask you, please subscribe, hit that notification bell as well if you haven't already. If you've hung around this long, I'm guessing you enjoy our content in some capacity, or you just hate our content and want to find every single way to clown us, which in that case, you may as well just be efficient with your time and, hit that subscribe button anyway so you know when our videos go up. Just Just make it a little bit more efficient on yourself. You can follow all of our other socials as well. FFL is on Twitter. The FFL is on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas. On Facebook and TikTok. If you're on YouTube through and through, though, hey, I get it. Fantasy Football Fellas shorts over there. All exclusive content that is not featured on this channel whatsoever. It's not just clips of our podcast on a short form channel. No, it is entirely exclusive content over there for you all. You can follow our personal socials as well. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on X, Camlaw FFF for Cameron, Tyler _Plath for Ty. We will see you on Sunday. I'm not even going to bother telling you about next week. We will see you on Sunday for our start sit stream before kickoff. Be there or be square. We appreciate you all. We'll see you soon. Deuces.
Deuces.